it was like a focal point to get me back to being focused on what is, like we talked about earlier, what is truly important in life. Who are the people that are important to me? Do I communicate with them enough? Have I included them enough? I realized that I was getting too much about my ambition, my will, my pride, my next goal, getting to the next level, getting a bigger paycheck. And I don't think I was a bad person, but it was all through my own effort, or at least in my mind. I wasn't including them in my life. I guess I didn't realize what a blessing they are in my life, because I have other good friends who have lost both parents already. Just to call them and to visit them and to include them in your life is so important while you have them.
This episode is brought to you by Let's Get Checked, the leading provider of at-home health tests. Are you looking to improve your thyroid levels? With Let's Get Checked, you can do a simple at-home health test that will give you a complete picture of your hormonal health in 5 days. Did you know that 42% of people have said that they have never tested their thyroid function? Thyroid function is important for a number of different functions: regulating the metabolism, stimulating digestion, bone maintenance, brain development, and cardiovascular health. Some of the main symptoms of thyroid imbalance include weight gain, fatigue or feeling tired all the time, slow pulse or heart rate, hair loss or thinning, poor tolerance of the cold, depression, dry, coarse or thickened skin, constipation, hand tingling or pain, irregular period or low sex drive, muscle cramps, or impaired memory. So, how does the process work? Your test is delivered straight to your door. You just have to self-collect your blood sample from the tip of your finger, mail the sample back to their accredited laboratories in the prepaid label, and receive support and guidance from the LGC medical team, who are available 24/7 to offer you the personalized advice you need to know about your hormonal health. This week, Let's Get Checked wants to invite you to join their community with a 20% discount, Gratitude 20. It's good to know.
Welcome to the Gratitude Podcast on www.georgianbenta.com, where you'll hear a new story each week that will inspire more gratitude in your own life. Our mission is to inspire 100,000 people to discover how to feel gratitude and live a happy life through the amazing life stories of our successful guests and their actionable tips. And now, the host of our podcast, Georgian Benta.
Hi, Gratitude Seeker. Welcome to a new episode of the Gratitude Podcast. Our guest today is an educator of 28 years and a survivor of stage 4 lymphoma. His book, From Goo to God, a Science-based Defense of Creationism versus Evolution, was the first he has ever written and was a product of his life journey as an educator, and it was about his fight to overcome cancer. If you're wondering what Goo is, it's Godless Ocean Origins. And the subtitle of his book is From Godless Ocean Origins to Grace Ordained Designer. And I love it, and I think it's going to be something really interesting to talk about. His name is Bruce Roger Matson, and I'm really happy to have him here on the Gratitude Podcast. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you so much, Georgian. I appreciate the opportunity.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So, let us know a little bit more about you, about your story.
Well, I have been, as you said, an educator for 28 years. I've been a teacher and a elementary school principal, and so for many, many years I've taught science. And one of the things that over the years has bothered me is the science textbooks, the approved state curriculum always has evolution, which is fine. I'm not opposed to that, but there's never any balance to it. They never share the science that goes against evolution. They never show the scientists who are against evolution and don't believe things didn't happen that way. It's a one-sided conversation. And so often I would feel like we're teaching our kids things that aren't true, and at least we're not being able to give them balance where then they can make an educated choice and realize that um, that there are flaws in evolution and it's just a theory. And but right now it's a one-sided conversation. So that is really a big motivation for me to write the book, because my kids in my classroom are precious to me, and I don't want to tell them anything that's not true. And whether a person is of faith or not, I would like to think they want their kids and or they would want to know the truth of our origins and how things came about. So much of my book is just science-based facts that are, I believe, irrefutable, that dismantle evolution and support what I call it, and is said to be intelligent design. Which I believe leads us to a creator. But there's so much intelligent design in things that natural means, natural processes cannot explain them. And I just want that to talk about intelligent design to be part of the conversation, and so people can make a true judgment for themselves what our origins are.
Definitely. I think it's a really interesting conversation, and I think it's important for kids to have this perspective as well, and to look into, to just be curious on the fact that there might be other ways of looking at things. And of course, from my point of view, some of the things that scientists in general tend to overlook is, for instance, the fact that most of the science is done with the mind, not with the heart. And we don't take into consideration many things that we feel, that we experience, that are really hard to explain scientifically. And they are part of who we are and what we experience, and part of consciousness. And many times they are overlooked. So yeah, I think that's a lot to there's a lot to discuss about this topic.
Right. If someone is biased in any way and believes evolution to be true, well, they're going to look at any set of evidence and try to justify evolution with it. And I think it could be the other direction too, where somebody is biased, saying there has to be creation, and which is the side I'm on. But I want people to be open-minded and look at all the evidence and see, let the evidence speak for itself. And I believe it's overwhelmingly towards the intelligent design, towards a creator. And so I'm hoping people will be open-minded enough to listen to that, because our media, whether it's TV or video games, on the internet, everything you see is pretty much assuming evolution to be true. So we're bombarded with that. And I want people to know that, no, there's a whole other side to this. And like I said, so they can consider it. If you don't have the information, then, you're at a loss to weigh that into your beliefs and thinking. So I want to be part of the conversation, and that's because I think we're selling people short, and it's not it's just not right.
What do you think would change in children's perspective and appreciation about life if they would look into this other perspective?
Well, I think it gives us value as individuals, because I believe that we are created in the image of God, and that we have a bit of His Spirit in each of us, and we are spiritual beings in that manner. And so if evolution is true, well, we basically came from the Godless Ocean Origins. I mean, if we were just happenstance, random happening that some materials came to life, and a cell happened to come to life, and then it happened to know how to reproduce itself, and it happened to know how to make new species, and it happened to eventually work to us. And it just, and again, to truly be on the side of evolution, you have to believe that our most distant ancestors were amoeba, and so it's, to me, that it's not presented in a way that, that they make it sound like evolution has to be true, but they don't go through what would have to be true scientifically for it to be true. And I just think it makes, for our kids, for all of us, to realize that we're made for a specific purpose. We have specific skills and things that are just unique to us that no one else has, and that's, I believe, part of God's plan, that we are special and unique, and so we don't have to be, getting back to kids, like everybody else. We don't have to fit in. We all have a unique plan and purpose, and then we can spend our life trying to fulfill that purpose and to seek that out and seek that truth out. But otherwise, we're just, well, evolution's about survival of the fittest, and I think it leads kids to being very individualistic, and it's all about me. And where I believe God's purpose for us is to work with one another and be good to one another and look out for one another, where evolution is, survival of the fittest, and the strong survive. And I just think that puts on society a perspective that's sad and dangerous.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that one of the things that make us most grateful is our interdependence. The fact that
Yes.
we are interconnected, and we can't do many of the things that we are able to do without other people. And we don't even realize it much of the time. But even the food that we have, that we just buy from the supermarket, if there weren't other people that, I don't know, worked so that we will have the plants or the fruit or um, the vegetables that we can buy, and if there weren't people to take care of them, to take them out of the earth, or to just put them in baskets and transport them to the supermarket and everything. Like, it would be something really complicated for us to take care of everything if
Right.
we also want to work and do something else other than gardening. So that's just one example, but we are interdependent in so many ways, and many times we just don't realize it. But like, most of the things that we are surrounded by are created by other people, and we just enjoy them, and we pay a fair price for them, and we get to enjoy them, but we haven't created much of the things that we enjoy in our life. So that's just one example of how interdependent we are, and how important it is, in my opinion, to realize how interdependent we are.
Right. We have that spiritual need, I believe, to know our creator, to know where we came from. Yet we are social beings, and we can't do it alone. We have to rely on one another. We have to build one another up, encourage one another, and do it together. And that's where when you get to true peace and joy in life. When you're all on your own and me, then it's not. People aren't going to then appreciate more what you have contributed if it's all about yourself. But if you've done it together and they've been part of that walk with you, then it's more meaningful and far more powerful and joyful for everybody.
Exactly. And since we're on this topic, I'm really curious if you would like to share about your journey with cancer and how you were able to overcome it, and how did the people in your life contribute to you getting over this difficult period in your time.
I, in December of 2013, I was diagnosed with stage 4 follicular lymphoma. It was throughout all my body, throughout all my bone marrow, every lymph node. It was quite well advanced. And when the doctor gave me the diagnosis, it was a moment. It is a pivotal moment that I would never change, because it was a beginning point of helping me to become the person I believe our Creator wants me to be. And and I think a lot of people would be thinking, my goodness, I would be devastated to get a diagnosis like that. My initial instinct was, I'm going to be fine. God's got this. And I can say throughout the whole process, even though I went through 18 sessions of chemotherapy, and I was even at that point, I was so weak. I was 49 years old at the time. I had to put all my things into storage and move back home with my parents. Now, talk about a humbling thing to go through, but I had to.
Oh.
And so, but I just knew I was going to be okay. I knew that it was like a focal point to get me back to being focused on what is, like we talked about earlier, what is truly important in life. Who are the people that are important to me? Do I communicate with them enough? Have I included them enough? I realized that I was getting too much about my ambition, my will, my pride, my next goal, getting to the next level, getting a bigger paycheck. And I don't think I was a bad person, but it was all through my own effort, or at least in my mind. And I was not, especially with my parents, I live a couple hours away from them. I wasn't including them in my life. I guess I didn't realize what a blessing they are in my life, because I have other good friends who have lost both parents already. And, just to call them and to visit them and to include them in your life is so important while you have them. And so, again, because I got sick, I moved back home, and one of the great blessings is I reconnected with my parents. I got to know them again. And and the ironic thing is, a few years prior to that, my mother had dealt with cancer, and
Wow.
she had overcome it. She was doing well, and now she ends up taking care of me. And so, that's one of the blessings. So again, you talk about gratitude toward my parents, that they were just there for me. It wasn't even a question to them. You come home and they took care of me. Another person I have great gratitude toward is my sister, because initially I was like in denial, and I wanted to deal with it on my own, and I didn't want to tell people. And she says, you have to tell your friends. And she said, how would you feel if one of your friends is going through something like this and they don't tell you? And I said, I would be upset. So because of her urgings, I started to call a friend each night, and it ended up turning into like a 2 and 3 hour conversations. So every night
Oh.
I'd call someone else. And I reconnected people that I hadn't talked to in a long time, or, because I was so tied up with my life, but people who were very meaningful to me in my younger years. And I just realized I should have been doing this all along. Why has it been so long since I reconnected with them? And so again, I'm grateful to my sister for, again, she kind of kicked me in the butt and said, you need to call them. You need to let them know what's going on. And another thing happened that I'm very grateful to a friend of mine that again, when I was in the midst of the chemotherapy, he wanted to get me out the house, and he said, I'm going to take you to my son's hockey game. And as we're driving, he could still see I was in almost denial, and I'm fine, even though I'm not, and he says,
Yeah.
Bruce, let your friends help you. Let your family help you. It's okay, to ask for help. And what I needed to hear too was, he says, you're not a weak person because you need help. He says, let us help you. And so I was learning through this all how, I think it's my pride, my will. I was so used to doing things on my own that now when I really needed people, I still had those walls, but I had people close in my life that helped knock them down. They loved me enough to say, no, Bruce, let us in. Let us help you. It's okay. And I so needed to hear that. And so I just, again, ended up reconnecting with people. And another thing that happened when I talked to my friends and my family, I started to tell them things that were always unsaid, that, whether it's just that you love them and you appreciate them, and how much you just, again, the gratitude you have for your friendship, and things that I never said to people. That, again, sometimes if you lose a loved one or a friend, then you say, oh gee, I wish I would have told them this, I wish I would have told them that. Well, now I started to tell people that, and I can't tell you what peace that gave me, what joy. It just I realized I should have been open and doing this all along, but it was the wake up call of getting sick, being made dependent, being humbled, that made me realize what wonderful people I have in my life, and I was taking them for granted, not including them and sharing with them and telling them the things I needed to say. But now I was, and so to me, I wouldn't change anything, because I'm closer to people. Like with my older brother, we're closer now than we ever have been, and had deeper conversations now than we ever have, and I'm so grateful to that.
I would say that this is what healed you. Like,
Yes.
I think this emotional part is so important for all of us, that we just don't realize. We and I think what you just experienced and how you were before your health issues, I think it describes so well how many of us are. And for our listeners, I think it's such a great reminder of what we can appreciate and the things that we can do to actually appreciate the people in our life more, to see them more, to find time.
Yes.
It's
It,
it's amazing.
yes, it's so easy to get caught up with your life, the events of your life, and in my case, I was taking for granted that my friends, family, they're always going to be there, and
Yeah,
that's not the case. Tomorrow is not promised to any of us, and you have to, people want to be involved, they want to help, they want to share in your triumphs and tragedies. That's part of life, and we just, we're better people, and we're stronger people for going through it together.
exactly. And I love how you described your experience of being vulnerable and letting yourself be helped, and let other people be there for you. And it's been one of the things that I've realized in the last few years, that people actually enjoy helping me and enjoy um, the fact that I'm giving them the possibility of helping me. And
Right.
it's so new somehow for me, even though I am the kind of person that loves to help people. But I didn't realize that in many situations I just wasn't giving people the possibility. I wasn't letting myself be held in one way or another, and it was, I would say, it's not easy not to judge myself with this, but I would say that I was selfish in a way, that I wasn't
Mhm.
giving them the opportunity to do this.
Yes, and one of the big things then in reconnecting on a deeper level with my family and friends, and also again tied to battling cancer, I saw my mortality. Even though I was so confident that I was going to get through it, it still made me look at, again, I started to research more things about my faith, and I started to grow in that, and I was very reassured in my heart that I knew where I was going to be in eternity. I believed I'm going to be with the Lord, and I had no doubt about it. I was at a point, I'm not afraid to die. But it started then to weigh on me. What about all my family and extended family? What about my friends? What's truly on their heart? What do they truly believe? It's one thing to say you're a person of faith, but are you really? Or I go to this church or this synagogue or whatever. It's one thing to say that sort of thing, but do you truly have a relationship? And I believe that's what it is, with our Creator. And so that was a big part of then writing the book, because I not only did I put the science about creation and who our Creator is and the science that backs it, but then I go into how I believe in Christ, that I believe He is my Lord and Savior, and that I hope that people will, if I can plant the seed in people that evolution isn't true. Because if you're of believe in evolution, it's like saying that faith in God cannot be true. And I just want people to know that there's another truth out there, and the more you look at the science, the more it supports the Creator. And again, going back to why I wrote the book, initially I never thought it would get published. I mean, I thought maybe it would, but I thought, gee, even if I just get my thoughts down and share it with my family and friends, and they'll know what's on their heart, because it made me think about their eternity, and I want to be with them. And so that was a big motivation of writing it, that to have that conversation with family and friends, a conversation that I never really had with them, and not on that type of a deep level. And so, and then when the book was picked up by a publisher, I was like, wow, it's becoming far bigger and having far more impact than I could have ever imagined. But my initial focus was my family and friends, and again, knowing where my heart was and where I'm going to be in eternity. But I just want to know if they're going to be with me too. At least my heart would ache if I knew I didn't even have that conversation with them. And I knew I had to try. So this was my way to reach out and create that conversation.
Yeah, I think it's so important to express ourselves, and if we feel something, to, like you said, to write it down and to put it out into the world, and to just be open to what happens and to where it may lead, because you never know. You might think that you have some ideas that maybe are not that important, or maybe you have some kind of art that it's within you that you don't know if it can have an impact, or it can be something beautiful for someone. But the idea of creating, I think, is something that's very close to us as humans, and I can't help but connect it to the fact that we are, like you were saying, a part of creation, and so we have that power to create. And actually, that, in my opinion, it's a need of ours to create, to leave something behind, to leave our mark on the world, and it's one of the things that gives us meaning, and I think that's very important and very powerful. And since we're nearing the end of our time together, I would love to ask you, what are some things that you are grateful for right now in your life, and how do you appreciate them differently after the experience that you had?
That's a great question. For many years, I was a teacher, and then I became a principal for 7 years of elementary school. And I, it's not the same relationship as a building principal as a teacher. But when I became sick, I wasn't able to work for about 8.5 months. And I didn't know, my doctor said they didn't know that I could even work in a school again because my immune system was so compromised. But once I got well enough, my doctor there was an opportunity to teach again for me, and my doctor says, "Go ahead and do it. You know, I think you've recovered enough to the point you can do it." And I'm so grateful that I'm back in the classroom. I just it's a connection that in a relationship with the kids is precious, and so that's a big blessing of it, just to be back in the classroom. And it was just like putting on an old pair of gloves that fit perfectly. You know, I enjoy being a principal? Yes, but I realized the stresses of that and whatever, and again, the title of it weren't as important as the relationships and connecting with kids in the classroom. That's what I was called to do and be.
That's amazing. I think there are these kinds of things that we don't usually see them as being glorious, and like we don't usually think of them as success that actually make us most fulfilled. Like it's not always having the highest possible position in a company, or I don't know, in a certain business. That's actually what brings us the most fulfillment. It's sometimes the simple things, and where we are right now, or just things that we enjoy doing, and people we enjoy being with. Because I think it's also very interesting to see how society portrays success and fulfillment, and what actually happens inside of us, and what we feel is success and is happiness, and the reasons why we are grateful. And not all of the time it's the kind of success that we see on the news or in the media in general. So yeah, I think that's very beautiful, and I'm really grateful that you've shared that with us. So where can our audience go to find more about you or read your book?
Well, my book's available on Amazon. Again, it's From Goo to God. Again, from Godless Ocean Origins to Grace Ordained Designer. So it's also the electronic copies available. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Bruce R. Matson #1 Bruce R. Matson 1. So it's, again, this is all new to me. This is the
No
first book I ever
worries.
wrote, and so it's odd for me to be promoting myself, but I look at it, if I can help one person out there, if there's one person that's seeking some meaning, seeking some peace, I think, my book can help them find that, or even just listening to our conversation, that
Yeah.
that we don't have to worry about what the world thinks. Keep our priorities on the people who love us and care for us, and keep them involved in our lives, and you're going to find that peace and joy. And I just hope that if there are people who are skeptical about creationism, I just would hope you'd have an open mind, look at the evidence, look at the science, because I believe science is supporting creationism, it's supporting the intelligent design, and I think you're going to be surprised what's out there. And then I think it's going to excite you. It's going to open whole new avenues to the way you think and look at life. So I just hope you'll give it an opportunity.
Thank you so much for being here with us and for sharing so many great ideas and starting a conversation. I think that's very important, and for being so vulnerable for us and for sharing what you went through. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Hey Gratitude Seeker, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this interview. I really appreciate it. And if you could think of one person that would also benefit from it, share it with them. It might actually be the inspiration that they need to make their day or maybe even their life much better. Thank you so much once again. This has been Georgian Benta. Don't forget to keep seeking and spreading gratitude.